With respect to the refrigeration cycle, the low-pressure side is between the A. Reefer compressor and tube condenser, B. Tube condenser and liquid receiver, C. Expansion valve and reefer compressor, D. Remove refrigerant moisture. The answer is C. Expansion valve and reefer compressor. In air conditioning system, which part when a refrigerant begins to boil and flash into gas? A. Evaporator, B. Condenser, C. Liquid receiver, D. Compressor. The answer is A. Evaporator. Crude petroleum is usually A. 87 to 99% carbon, 20 to 24% hydrogen, B. 81 to 87% carbon, 10 to 14% hydrogen, C. 87 to 99% carbon, 10 to 14% hydrogen, D. 80 to 90% carbon, 20 to 24% hydrogen. The answer is B. 81 to 87% carbon, 10 to 14% hydrogen. The volume of hydraulic fluid when there is an increase in temperature is, it will A. Expands, B. Remains the same, C. Contracts, D. None of the above. The answer is A. Expands. The grade of crude oil that varies in color from reddish brown to jet black, are principally used for fuel and road oil is the A. Gas oil, B. Asphalt base oils, C. Top crude oil, D. Paraffin base oil. The answer is B. Asphalt base oils. Upon receiving an order finished with engines, the main air stop valve of the propulsion engine must be A. Drained, B. Closed, C. Oiled, D. Steamed. The answer is B. Closed. Scavenging fire occur if the engine piston rings are A. Compressing, B. Good, C. Leaking, D. Oiled. The answer is C. Leaking. In V-type engines the angle between banks is A. 30 to 12 degrees, B. 140 to 22 degrees, C. 330 to 360 degrees, D. 100 to 200 degrees. The answer is A. 30 to 12 degrees. The part of an engine that transmits the reciprocating motion of the piston to the driven unit in the form of rotary motion is the A. Crankshaft, B. Crankshaft, C. Propeller shaft, D. None of these. The answer is B. Crankshaft. A reversible electric motor with worm gear that is connected to the flywheel to position engine parts is the A. Valve gear, B. Reversing, C. Turning gear, D. Crankshaft. The answer is C. Turning gear. The part of an engine that has the function of measuring the speed and changing the fuel control is A. Injector, B. Indicator, C. Generator, D. Governor. The answer is D. Governor. The materials that has the function of providing oil film between the shafts and bearing surfaces of diesel engines. A. Lubricants, B. Sealants, C. Oils, D. All of these. The answer is A. Lubricants. The ratio of fuel oil density to the density of water is called A. Viscosity index, B. Specific gravity, C. Latent heat, D. Volume. The answer is B. Specific gravity. The revolution/s of the crankshaft is /r needed to complete one cycle in a two-stroke engine is A. half, B. 1, C. 2, D. 3. The answer is B. 1. Distance traveled by the engine piston from bottom dead center to the top dead center and vice versa is called A. Length, B. Stroke, C. Tension, D. Width. The answer is B. Stroke. Most common trouble of turbo chargers in a two-stroke engine is A. Temperature, B. Pressure, C. Surging, D. Stroke. The answer is C. Surging. Lantern rings are provided in centrifugal pumps to A. Allow visual inspection of shaft and packing. B. Provide passage for the packing coolant. C. Ensure alignment of the pump coupling to the driver. D. Absorbs wear between the impeller and the casing. The answer is B. Provide passage for the packing coolant. Pump shafts are usually protected from erosion, corrosion, and wear at stuffing boxes by A. Wearing rings. B. Valve. C. Renewable sleeves. D. Pump. The answer is C. Renewable sleeves. The purpose of wear rings in a centrifugal pump is to A. Ensure alignment of the pump coupling to the driver. B. Absorbs wear between the impeller and the casing. C. Allow visual inspection of shaft and packing. D. Provide passage for the packing coolant. The answer is B. Absorbs wear between the impeller and the casing. Most pump manufacturers of pumps recommend that the suction piping dimension of centrifugal pumps be A. One size larger than the pump suction nozzle. B. Installed with a short radius elbow at the pump. C. Allow visual inspection of shaft and packing. D. Provide passage for the packing coolant. The answer is A. One size larger than the pump suction nozzle. Air leakage in packing gland of a condensate pump is prevented by A. Water seal line to the packing. B. An air seal line from compressor. C. Allow visual inspection of shaft and packing. D. Provide passage for the packing coolant. The answer is A. Water seal line to the packing. To thoroughly pump the bilge using a horizontal centrifugal pump is the A. Pump must always be primed. B. Volute must impart a rotary motion of the water. C. Expansion valve and reefer compressor. D. Reefer compressor and tube condenser. The answer is A. Pump must always be primed. The part if a refrigeration system reduces the pressure of a liquid refrigerant is the A. Expansion valve. B. Pump. C. Liquid receiver. D. Evaporator. The answer is A. Expansion valve. The part when the refrigerant begins boil and flash into gas in air conditioning system is in the A. Evaporator. B. Expansion valve. C. Liquid receiver. D. Condenser. The answer is A. Evaporator. The purpose of the dehydrator in refrigeration is to A. Add refrigerant to the system. B. Remove refrigerant moisture. C. Absorb the heat. D. Separate the oil. The answer is B. Remove refrigerant moisture. The purpose of a liquid receiver is to A. Absorb the heat. B. Store the refrigerant. C. Separate the oil. D. Remove refrigerant moisture. The answer is B. Store the refrigerant. Which of the following is the boiling point of Freon 12 at atmospheric pressure? A. 22 degrees Fahrenheit. B. 12 degrees Fahrenheit. C. 22 degrees Fahrenheit. D. 12 degrees Fahrenheit. The answer is A. 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Referring to marine refrigeration, what is the latent heat of fusion of ice? A. 144 BTU. B. 134 BTU. C. 124 BTU. D. 154 BTU. The answer is A. 144 BTU. Which of the following is not a property of Freon 12? A. Odorless. B. Colorless. C. Corrosive. D. None. The answer is C. Corrosive. What class of crude oil that is dark brown in color with a slightly reddish tinge? A. Asphalt base oil. B. Paraffin base oil. C. Gas oil. D. Burnt oil. The answer is B. Paraffin base oil. The ratio of absolute viscosity of oil to specific gravity of oil is called A. Absolute viscosity. B. Specific viscosity. C. Kinetic viscosity. D. None of these. The answer is C. Kinetic viscosity. A grade of crude oil or partly refined crude from which such products as gasoline and kerosene have been removed is termed A. Top crude. B. Gas oils. C. Distillate. D. Paraffin oil. The answer is A. Top crude. The purpose of orifice check valve placed in hydraulic system is to A. Allow movement in other direction. B. Allow restricted fluid in one direction only. C. Allow visual inspection of shaft and packing. D. Ensure alignment of the pump coupling to the driver. The answer is B. Allow restricted fluid in one direction only. What is generally accepted inlet and outlet cooling water temperature difference of a diesel engine closed cooling could? A. 10 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. B. 25 to 35 degrees Fahrenheit. C. 10 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. D. 25 to 35 degrees Fahrenheit. The answer is A. 10 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Prolonged operation of a diesel engine closed cooling system with temperatures lower than designed normal temperature could? A. Eliminate fuel detonation. B. Low lube oil pressure. C. Increase cylinder liner wear. D. Excess acidity to the lube oil. The answer is C. Increase cylinder liner wear. Corrosion occurring on bearing surface would be due to A. Low lube oil pressure. B. Eliminate fuel detonation. C. Excess acidity of the lube oil. D. Increase cylinder liner wear. The answer is C. Excess acidity of the lube oil. The most contaminating factor of lube oil is A. Metal shavings. B. Burnt oil. C. Dirty air. D. Asphalt base oil. The answer is B. Burnt oil. The factor that has the greatest effect on the mechanical efficiency of a diesel engine is A. Temperature of the intake air. B. Friction within the engine. C. Mechanical condition of the supercharger. D. Increase air pressure. The answer is B. Friction within the engine. Main purpose of supercharging a diesel engine is for A. Increasing air pressure. B. Decreasing air pressure. C. Increasing mean effective pressure. D. Decreasing mean effective pressure. The answer is C. Increasing mean effective pressure. To avoid hunting above or below the desired engine RPM, a hydraulic governor is equipped with A. Power pin arm. B. Metal shavings. C. Compensating device. D. Burnt oil. The answer is C. Compensating device. To prevent fire inside scavenge air spaces in marine diesel engines, it is important that it should be occasionally A. Drained. B. Heated. C. Steamed. D. None of the above. The answer is A. Drained. The purpose of shielding the fuel oil high pressure injection pipe between the injection pump and injector is to prevent A. Flood hazard. B. Injury hazard. C. Fire hazard. D. Biohazard. The answer is C. Fire hazard. When a centrifugal bilge pump is operated with closed discharge valve, the A. Motor overload would open. B. Leakage. C. Pump would overheat. D. None of the above. The answer is C. Pump would overheat. What should you do when centrifugal pump vibrates excessively after disassembly? You found that the impeller is out of balance. A. Remove metal from the heavy side by machining in a lathe. B. Acid wash and scrape the heavy side until it balances. C. Increase cylinder liner wear. D. Increase air pressure. The answer is A. Remove metal from the heavy side by machining in a lathe. The next, after installing new wear rings by pressing them onto a centrifugal pump impeller, it is advisable I. Dynamically balance the shaft and impeller. 2. Check the shaft and impeller with rings if centered. 3. Visually inspect the rings after about an hour of service. A. I only see 3 only. B. 2 only. D. I. 2 and 3. The answer is D. I. 2 and 3. Which of these reduces pulsation in pipeline on the discharge side of a steam reciprocating feed pump? A. Feed regulator. B. Valve. C. Air chamber. D. Gear. The answer is C. Air chamber. The purpose of the air chamber in the discharge of an emergency boiler feed steam reciprocating pump is to A. Facilitate draining of the cylinder. B. Reduce pulsations in the feed line. C. Replace the pumps. D. Increase air pressure. The answer is B. Reduce pulsations in the feed line. A pump that is not a positive displacement pump is A. Centrifugal. B. Gear. C. Reciprocating. D. Rotary. The answer is A. Centrifugal. Capacity of a rotary pump delivering a constant viscosity fluid will decrease if the discharge pressure is increased because of A. Reduce slippage. B. Increase pressure. C. Increase slippage. D. Decrease pressure. The answer is C. Increase slippage. All the following are used with the reciprocating bilge and ballast system except A. Suction priming pump. B. Reduce slippage. C. Discharge valve. D. Increase pressure. The answer is A. Suction priming pump.